All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight to talk about some Azure B2C. So, yeah, definitely, if people have questions, feel free to raise your hand or just do unmute. Happy to chat. Really want to make this interactive. Want to, make sure you guys are getting out of this what you want to. A lot of different ways we can go with it, but did prepare a few things. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we can get started. Let me know when you guys can see that okay.
I can see your screen.
All right, sounds good. All right, so real quick about me. I'm a solution consultant and director of delivery engineering at Lenavi. Lenavi, we're a company that basically provides end-to-end solutions for our customers, and we're able to help customers from like DevOps to cloud enablement. We do a lot of building custom cloud native applications, and all the way to also providing managed and cloud managed services. So we really provide whatever our customers need, and we really help navigate them to what's next. As director of delivery engineering, I help lead our technical team and help make sure all of our solutions are built with the right architecture, are done securely, which identity and B2C plays in a big part of that, and making sure that we're following the right practices and stuff there. Microsoft MVP, I've been MVP mostly on for the last almost about 10 years now, and it's been great opportunity there. Also organizer of the Omaha DevOps meetup. Just real quick plug there. Been a little quiet in that, so hopefully if there's a lot of overlap between cloud and DevOps, so definitely want to get that going some more. We've got a great core group. I just need some speakers, so anybody who's interested in talking about whatever you're doing in DevOps world, that's great. Also, robotics club coordinator for 4th through 6th graders. That's a lot of fun. We haven't got to do everything this year we wanted to do, but still a lot of good there, and feel free to reach out to me. So all that. On the topic of like identity and Azure B2C, I've actually become very passionate about identity and security for the past probably 6 or 7 years. I'd say solutions we built in the past, like before that, have been mostly internal facing, like behind the firewall, using like Windows identity and such. But last 6, 7, 8 years, we've been building a lot of cloud applications, public facing. Ones where security and identity are a really big deal, and so it's become something I've really wanted to learn and get to know really well. And so this is some of the stuff I've learned over the years, and what I've been helping a lot of our customers and a lot of our systems, or a lot of the applications that we build, implement security and identity there. So with that, today we'll just do a quick overview of identity, just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page there. Give a little background on B2C, and then we'll actually show kind of incorporating the application, and then you kind of wrap up with some advanced features, if you will. We'll definitely touch on a lot of different things that you guys want to. So I'm sure most of you are well aware of what identity is, but for those of you who aren't, or maybe just kind of level set here, it's really about how to control the access to the system or application that you're building, and also then the resources or services, that are also protected by your application, and really doing that with credentials of an actual user. It's really broken into 2 parts. One is authentication, and the other is authorization. So authentication is really validating that you are who you say you are. And so once you have that validation, you kind of can open the door, but you're not necessarily authorized to use anything within like that application. That's where authorization comes in and actually provides the access. So when we're talking about like, when you do a sign-in process on an application, that's authentication. When you then go try to hit a service or try to do something in the application, that's authorization. So pretty straightforward there. Again, questions, definitely let me know. I can see most of the chat window, so we'll just kind of go there. There's different kinds of identity providers, if you will. The 2 kind of main categories I'd say are around like social and enterprise. When you talk about social, that's really the identities that you own as an individual. So like you've created your Facebook account, you've created your Google account, any of those, you own that. If you quit your job, leave a company, they're not going to do anything with those accounts because those are yours. That's really what we're talking about when we're talking about social accounts. The enterprise or organization accounts, those are ones where the company you work for or the organization you're part of really owns those accounts. So if you leave, they'll go disable that account. And those are more like Office 365, Azure Active Directory, those types of things with those. Along with providing those identities, another key piece to identity, and we get this asked all the time, is we don't want, users don't want to have to remember 100 passwords or know what their logins for every website. So that's where we can do what's called single sign-on. And I'm sure everybody's seen this, and we'll actually do a demo here in a few minutes about enabling like social logins with like Facebook or Google to be able to sign in your application so you don't have to remember a new password. And you can do the same thing on the enterprise side. If you partner that you're working with or you're building an application, they don't want to sign into your application, but they want to use their own logins, we can do what's called federate with them. And then they can actually sign in with their own users, and you can grant their users permission. So, and we'll talk a lot about that because that's a key thing that Azure B2C provides. Other thing too is when we're talking about identity, you can rolling your own's an option, but I would, that would be to me a last resort. I would rarely ever want to do that if we're creating, especially if we're creating something new. There's two wide standards out there right now. SAML is kind of an XML based, and OpenID Connect, which is more JSON based, and kind of I would say a little bit more on the modern side of the two. But SAML's been around a lot longer. So those two definitely provide a lot of the standards there. So definitely use those standards when you are building your app. So with that, then we're going to actually kind of talk more specifically about OpenID Connect and then how Azure B2C uses that. So what are some of the parts of OpenID Connect? Well, it's kind of broken into two parts. And what's really nice is they can work interchangeably too. Your solution can provide both or one or the other. The first one's identity provider. So when we talk about identity provider, we'll talk about that through the rest of the talk here, is that's really where your users are actually stored. So if you think of it as a table, that's your user table. Obviously, the identity providers can come in a lot of different ways, but essentially when it comes to it, that's where the user is. The next part is your token or service provider, depending on if you're talking SAML or OpenID Connect. And that is what does your authorization. So that's what will actually have your sign in. You'll be authenticated by that. And then that's what will issue the token to your application to know whether or not you can access the resources you're trying to. The other part is the JWT or JSON Web Tokens. You'll also might hear this as JWT tokens. As you can see, that's a little redundant, but I'll probably say it a couple times tonight. But that's really the token that gets passed from, let's say, like your client to the APIs, and we'll tell there have like claims in there and some other attributes to really show what it has access to at that point. One of the foundations of OpenID Connect is it's built on top of OAuth 2. OAuth 2 is really the primary, I'd say, security mechanism for APIs. And so that handles authorization. Well, they basically built OpenID Connect to be the authentication piece on top of OAuth 2. So that's kind of how those two fit in there. And you'll hear a lot of kind of interchangeability with that because, it is basically built on OAuth 2 there. Then there's what's called flows. And what's really nice about this, we'll talk about more specifically here when we get into some of the B2C stuff, but what's nice about OpenID Connect is not kind of one size fits all. There's actually different flows or grants that are specific to kind of how you want to use your application or what kind of application you're building and what you need from a security identity perspective. What's nice is it's two things. One, you can have some options that are maybe more secure, but two, that are easier to use. So if you're doing like server to server communication, you can actually store a secret like the password on that server because people don't have access to it. But you don't want to download a password to, let's say, an Angular application that's in your browser because that's in wide open and somebody have access to it. So you can see there's the different needs and there's different ways to do that authentication. And these are the more common, or these are the ones that really it supports. We'll mostly be talking about authorization code flow here, but there is implicit flow, and I'll talk more about these in just a little bit, so we'll come back to that. Let's see. So when we talk about options, there's a lot of different ones out there. First one is Identity Server. This is actually really cool. It's an open source .NET identity, fully compliant OpenID Connect identity and token provider. We've used it quite a bit on projects. The makers of that have decided to start their own company and focus more on kind of a commercial version, which I still think is great because the more they support it, the better it is. But so I think this will be a valid option for until November of 2022. But there's also commercial options, ADFS, Active Directory, Federation Services. It's by Microsoft, part of Windows Server. You can install. Ping Federate's another server product you can install. So there's those options to install them. The other one that I think is really interesting and I think is really grown in popularity is having more of an identity as a service. And there's a lot of providers out there. It works really well because then it's something you don't have to write as a developer or host as the infrastructure. And they basically provide that identity as a service. And with all the integrations you'd normally want to. Okta is we've used that quite a bit. AUTH0 is another one. And then, of course, the ones here for Azure. And we'll talk about Azure AD and B2C and what's different here in just a minute. So Azure has a lot of identity options, and they make it crystal clear which one to use at all times. No, they don't actually. It can be really confusing to kind of choose or try to pick which one you use. I'm not going to go into an extensive here's every reason to use it, but just some kind of guardrails when you would use each of them. And we do need both of them, even when we're using B2C, which we're talking about more specifically here. Azure AD is your enterprise organizational ID. So think employees. That's where those are being stored. That's where if you want to protect your app with primarily internal users, that's what you want to use there. But it also is what you want to use for role-based access controls on the resources that you provision in Azure, let's say. So you'd still want to use, like me as I'm creating a web app in Azure, I'm going to use my employee or org account under the AD to manage that instead of the B2C stuff. And we'll go through what that means. And I've got a kind of a picture to show what that means there. So here's where it gets a little bit interesting. There's Azure B2B along with Azure B2C. So obviously business to business and business to consumer is the difference there. This one, really think about it. And again, if you tried to list out all the features that both of them provide, it gets really confusing. But I think if you just kind of think about it this way, it kind of makes it easier. So this is really more for if you're building a SaaS application and you really want your partners that's building the apps to really manage their own users. So you don't have an opt-in. Like normally with B2C, you sign up and then you are part of that B2C tenant. Whereas with B2B, it's because you're part of that partner company, you're there. So if you wanted your app to be in the Azure AD, SSO library, or the Office 365, if your users are primarily Office 365, you might want to look at more B2B. So then what we're really focused on here is the Azure B2C. Again, that's the consumer facing one, those external users. The default is more that self-service sign up and sign in. So that's kind of that's the, I guess, happy path, if you will, for B2C. So if you think about that kind of flow, that's what it's really kind of tailored for. It has options to use local accounts, social accounts. You can federate with other OpenID Connect and SAML. You can also federate with Azure AD or Office 365. So that part gets a little bit, that's where, again, there's some of that overlap. But again, think about it more as the general use, not necessarily the features. I want to pause there for just a second. Any questions on that? Because it is kind of I don't know, we get the question quite a bit. Is there any, can't really see here.
I don't see anything on the chat.
All right, great. We'll continue on. If you do have questions, let me know. So let's start talking now specific about B2C, and we'll talk about that and then the rest, but I just wanted to kind of give that foundation for that was helpful. And here then, the next thing we want to talk about, so what is B2C? Well, again, it's that identity protection for your customers. And it does have some really good security mechanisms built into it. It can protect against different attacks. You might have heard of like password spray or DDoS bot. Because Microsoft is so big and it has so much data, they can actually use like machine learning and things like that to know, okay, you know, this user account and email address has just now been tried on, you know, 4,000 times across a bunch of different accounts. They know this is probably something that's malicious, so they can kind of help identify that, build it in there. We'll talk a little bit about some of the policies you can actually set up to actually protect it. Also, MFA. Apologize about any maybe extra noises in here. My co-pilot here is a golden retriever, and she's hanging out with me, so you might hear some noises from her. So then, you know, also then provides like the high availability and global availability. That's another really big piece. Like you don't have that capability. You know, if you're just installing a server, you know, you'll have to do that yourself, or that's just built in there. Next up is, you know, the user flows, and we'll talk about this. I'll show you some examples. That's for like your sign in, sign up process. We'll talk about more of the details there, but they have great out of the box ones, but then they have a whole framework to help you extend that. The last thing we just wanted to call out here is the billing. So this has actually changed in the last, I think it was about a little less than a year ago. It used to be number of authentications per month is what you'd be charged for. So if you had one user authenticate all the time, you know, over 50,000 times, you'd have to pay for that. Now it's monthly active users. And so if your application doesn't even have 50,000 users, essentially B2C is free. And there's two tiers with that. There's a premium, which gives you some additional risk mitigation capabilities. That's free for the first 50,000 too. So, I mean, if you have more than users, you're inactive users again too, not just total users. This solution can be totally free. So I think that's pretty exciting. All right, so, you know, the question is, can B2C support a number of different applications? And yeah, it definitely supports pretty much every type of application that's out there. You know, if you're talking about a web application, maybe like MVC or Blazor, it can handle those kind of server-side applications. You know, your Angular and React SPA applications are supported there. Your web APIs, mobile and native applications, pretty much all of those are supported. There's really, services are kind of supported, but not totally. And then there's one flow that's not really supported. It's supported in Azure AD, but not B2C. And that's the on behalf of. And that's really, if you kind of want to do like two hops and pass those user credentials down. Back in the old days, we'd call it like delegation with Windows authentication, but that one doesn't quite work. Or doesn't work with B2C, I'm sorry, not kind of. So I talked about like the SSO and federation and how that works. So this is actually pretty cool. Again, with OpenID Connect, the B2C can actually work as the identity provider, so it can store your users, or I guess it can be used as the service provider and work with some of the other providers there. So with B2C here in the middle, as the identity provider, you can use it with other applications. Maybe your partner has an application and you want your users to be able to access that application. You can actually use B2C then as the identity provider and connect to another service provider with that application there. And then on the flip side, and we'll show this one more in particular, is, you know, B2C can be that service provider to essentially give you the tokens or token provider, but then you can use other identity providers, like I mentioned this already, and for the actual end users there. So a lot of options. Talked a little bit about how AD and B2C work. I'll just kind of go through this quickly, and then we can get into some demos here. So the first thing is we have a web application that we've built. Let's just say we're using API management to actually do some cross-cutting or take care of some of the cross-cutting concerns that we might have in our APIs. So in this case, we don't want our APIs, maybe they're function apps, so we don't want them to have to validate the JWTs. So we can actually do that in API management. So when you kind of think about where this stuff lives, you know, the web application will be running on the user's browser, but then the server-side pieces will actually be in the organization tenant. So not in the B2C one. And then our users will not come from our Azure AD again. That's just for managing these services within the Azure AD tenant. When we talk about B2C, again, that's our external identities. And that can provide, you know, the token provider, be our identity provider. It can handle those local users. When we're hitting our web application, they'll be redirected to here. We'll sign in. We'll then try to hit the API when we need those resources. API management will talk back to B2C and then actually be able to validate that those tokens are protecting the application there. I'll mention how that federation works. We can do social identity providers like Google. In that case, it's the same type of thing. We'll get this token will still be issued here at B2C with a Google user, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. And then that'll allow us to go through with the application. And then the same thing with other like enterprise identity providers like Okta or any other one too.
Hey, Mike, couple of questions.
Yeah.
So when you say organization tenant and external identities tenant, we need to have two different tenants, right? One would be our standard Azure AD tenant, and then we'll be required to create a separate Azure AD B2C tenant, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a great segue because that's exactly what I'll show you in the demo. But yeah, you'll have this one here. So like this in our case would be Lanavi, and then this external one might be like an application specific one for the users for that application. So yeah, it's actually, if you've used Azure and you actually do switch tenants completely, and this tenant is you can't like create normal resources in that tenant. It's specifically for B2C. They call it a B2C tenant. Yeah, great question.
And it under the hood, it's just the identity provider, so it's just not specific to applications running in Azure. We can actually use it for any application outside of Azure as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, this this will work for, in this case, an application that's hosted in Azure, but there's really no reason the application needs to be hosted here. It can be hosted on-prem behind a firewall. It can be hosted pretty much anywhere, and you can still use B2C. That's a great point. So.
Okay, last point on federation. We can federate between our Azure AD tenant and B2C tenant as well, right? Just how we can do for between social identity providers.
Yeah, so just like this up here, this enterprise is using Okta, we could draw a line back to our Azure AD and authenticate with that. And we've done that too, and use that, and that works just fine. Again, it works a little bit different because when you sign in with your Azure AD account, it's actually kind of creating this user here record. So it's not, and then so there's basically this record here, but you're still using your AD and the password and everything. So you still get the single sign-on.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, great. Great questions there. Any others? All right, so let's go jump into demos. Enough of me talking, I'm sure. All right, so here is our Azure portal, and one of the things we want to do here is actually switch back out of our directory and switch to our default one. And so here is our just normal Azure AD tenant. This would be like my normal, organizational tenant here. And this is where I want to create now my Azure B2C tenant. So we come in here, go to create a new resource, and here we're going to create a new B2C. There's two options here. There's create a new B2C tenant, or there's actually a link. You used to actually have to do this in two steps. I never really understood why you had to do the second step, but Thankfully, Microsoft has made it so it just automatically does it. So I don't know if we'll ever use that other one again, unless you've got some orphaned tenants out there that have never been linked, or if you want to maybe switch where it's linked to. So here, our organization name, we'll just call it, let's see, Omaha Azure User Group Demo. I'm never going to remember that. Omaha Azure User Group Demo, just about that. So that'll be, we just have to create a unique name here. That looks good. We'll create in the United States. There's my subscription I want to put it in. We'll just call it a new resource group, and we'll assign it to Central US. All right, so this will take just a minute, but as you saw, like when I created it, it actually switched it here. So once this is done, we'll be able to switch right into that tenant, and then we'll be able to use it. So I'll take just here a minute. As you can see here, we should save those questions for this point. But you can see here those other two. I've done a demo prep and a demo prep 2 tenant in here to actually create those. So should create it here in just a minute. Any other questions while we're waiting? This will go. And let's see here. So yeah, so it's creating that tenant, and it should be done here in just about a second. There it was created successfully. So really all we have to do is click right here on this link, and that'll take us directly in. And you'll see now that we're actually in our Omaha Azure User Group Demo tenant. And then we can switch back here, and then there'll be the other tenants. So this is where we'll essentially do everything from an Azure AD perspective, B2C, but that'll be it. So let's see here. The first thing we want to do then, so we've got our tenant, we want to register applications. So you can see there's a number of different things we can do. We can kind of manage our users and our app registrations. Here's where we can customize some of the flow. And then there's some new security features here to actually help make the applications more secure. So first we want to do is actually register an application with this. So we'll go ahead and do this one. We'll just keep it real simple. We call it demo. We want to basically allow any accounts from any identity provider here. We'll go ahead and switch this to a sync spot application just to kind of show one of the I think nice tricks here is we can actually put in this JWT MS site for a redirect, and what this will do is actually then show us that JWT as soon as we authenticate. Obviously, for a real application, we wouldn't want to do this, but it works really nice for kind of some initial debugging. So at this point, now we can actually register our application. A couple of things we might typically do is we might want to do like a credential or client credential access. So here, all we need to do is create a new secret, and then this is really just our password for that client credentials. And you can see here it created a new password for that. The other thing is we can come in here from an authentication standpoint. This is a really key piece that we'll show later. Sorry, that's my dog. We then can make this be authorization code flow with PKCE. So this is that new authentication that we'll talk about here. But for this one, just for the demo here, I'm going to go ahead and enable it for implicit flow, and then we'll be able to do the kind of demo here. All right, so that is set up. So now we have our application created. And then the next thing we want to do is do our flow. And what's interesting is the app registrations are not one-to-one with the flow. we can actually configure these flows across multiple applications if we want, or we can do it one for one. We talk about the flows. These are the those self-service activities that we want our users to do. In this case, we might want our users to sign up or sign in. They might need to do some profile editing, a password reset, just doing a straight sign up or sign in, and then like a different way to sign in there. We're just gonna go ahead and choose the default here, and then choose that choose the recommended approach. This was kind of the old way, but we're just gonna use the new model here. So that's great. I'm letting my dog out of the room. All right, so here now we can set up our policy. So this is just sign up and sign in. Maybe we might want to create multiple sign up and sign in, different flows there. The only accounts we have right now are local accounts, but we may have other identity providers configured, and we will actually later. We're just going to choose the default for MFA, and right now it's just set up for conditional, and those are some conditional access policies we can set up later. The last thing is identifying what attributes or claims we want it to actually return. In this case, we're going to choose email address, display name, and postal code. Let's bring those back. So that's what our tokens will actually contain, and what our user attribute table will store. And you can create custom ones too. So like if you had maybe a group or some sort of like loyalty ID or something like that, you can store that, and it basically stores it as a field in your users table, which works out really well. So now we have our policy, or our flow, I mean. And then here, what's really nice is we can actually test out that flow. And so here we can specify the application. Again, if we have multiple applications, we can choose which one we want to do. We can, if we have multiple reply URLs set up, we could do that. And then we can actually run our flow here. So in this case, we don't have any users set up in our user account right now, so I need to sign up. As you can see, there's, it's a pretty nice user experience here out of the box. We can specify a logo and it'd update that. But you also have full access to change all this. It's just HTML and some JavaScript, and you can go in and modify this to really match any branding you might have. In this case here, let's just sign up. My Gmail account sends my verification emails a lot faster, so we'll use that to avoid those uneasy silences. And see, we've already got it. We can now verify. Again, this is built in. We don't have to do anything here. We'll talk about how you can even customize that. And then just call this Mike. And I'm just going to do local, because we'll also do this same account with Google, 68022, and then create the user. And so now what it's done is it's actually, now it's displaying that the JWT. And here is our access token. And then here's what that token looks like decoded. And so you can see we have like the name in there and so forth, and some of the resources. So it really helps from a debugging standpoint if you're trying to see what's in there and make it work. All right, so we have we now have our flow set up. We've tested it.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I guess someone has raised his hand. Vijay, do you have anything to ask Mike?
Yes. Hey, this is Vijay, Mike. So I have a question. So if we, initially go up with just a sign-in user flow and eventually want to convert to sign-in and sign up, can we switch from sign-in to sign-in and sign up, or do we need to separately create another for sign up separately? Make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, so what you would do, like if you created just initially a sign in, let's say, and then like later you decide, no, we want to actually be able to do a sign up and sign in. Yeah, you would just go in and change the settings that your application is using. And I'll go in to show that a little bit, what that looks like from a JavaScript standpoint. So you can either make it the same name if you wanted to, or just a new name and update your application to support that. But yeah, you can definitely do that either behind the scenes or make a code change in your app to support it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure, great question. All right, so this is the JWT. So the next thing we want to do is actually, let's see how we can do some of this validation in action. So what I actually want to do is go back here to my regular account and come down here and look at API management. So I've set up a API management instance, which is just a tool for managing your APIs, but provides a lot of cross-cutting capabilities like this JWT validation. You can import a lot of different types of services, but also provides like throttling quotas. And you can even manage the authentication there. By default, it comes up with this handy Echo API, and that's what we're going to use in this case. What it does is it uses a series of policies to show different functionality it can do. You can see there's a lot of different things, even whitelisting you can do. You can override and set parameters and headers. We do that quite a bit. Like once we've authenticated here, we'll use that in the back end. In this case, we're not going to do that. You can see I actually already have this validate JWT policy in there. And then so really what we're going to do here is just update it to our new application. So this was a previous example here of the demo prep. So let's switch back over because I will get those, the acronym wrong for sure there. So we'll select that. And then this one has two places. We need to update it. And then you can see all the way down here to our, the name of the name of our flow. So if we come down here to our flow, the other way to do this would be is to come here, run our user flow, and we can actually capture this right up here too. So I could do it one of two ways. So I'll just do this because I always tend to type it in wrong. Anytime we do less typing in the demo, it works out better for everybody. The last thing here is our audience. This would be our client ID that was created when we created our application. So we'll come back here, look at our app registration that we did for our demo, and then we'll actually get our client or application ID, and then we'll paste that right here into there. So at this point we do save, and it'll actually validate. It goes out and looks, it actually goes and pulls down this OpenID Connect information there. And now we have our service there, service now protected. So here is that same call that we're doing. We did the post. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and send it. And you can see I'm getting a 401 error. And if we go in here to our authorization, this is the token that I used for the previous, or my demo prep run that I did. So we want to actually now go get the token that we used. I apologize for all the clicking around. I feel like I'm jumping around quite a bit. Here's we're actually going to copy that token. This is our access token here. Oops, sorry, and I just created an extra click. I'm going to switch now back to our Postman and paste that in, and now we'll make a call and we should get our information. And our Echo API basically brings back some XML and then some additional characters. Not quite sure where that came from, but that now you can see is actually, we're going to 200 and we're authenticated or authorized to call that service. So that really shows how we can do that. The next thing I wanted to show with this is how we can, excuse me, how we can add in a additional identity provider. So under the manage option in B2C, we come down here to our identity providers. And this will show you a list of all the out-of-the-box identity providers that B2C supports. Even if it's a one that's not, like if we want to use Okta, or maybe Okta's in the list, but not, we can actually come over here and even create our own ID or configure our own IDP to talk to it. In this case, we're going to use Google. Here, I'm actually getting the information that I need for to create my client over in Google. This is the developer console in Google. So this is where I'll actually create a client ID to basically trust, or so basically that Google users can trust my application. And so we'll come down here, we'll go ahead and create that client ID. In this case, we're just creating a web application. Sorry about that. We'll do demo. And then, so now we have these two URLs that we need to provide. Those are the two values that are here displayed. So there is the origin, and here's our callback. And now we can create our application, and this will generate our client ID and our client secret. So that can be trusted. And so we will pass in the client ID, and then we'll pass in our client secret, and then we will call this Google. And now we've configured our Google as an IDP that we can now use in B2C. Now we can't automatically use that. So what we need to do is tell in our user flow that we want to use this new identity provider along with our other one, if we wanted to. We could disable the local accounts if we wanted to and just use Google. In this case, I'm giving my users the option to say, yeah, and create a new user for this, or you can use Google. And that's a pretty typical experience I think most people have seen on websites. So we'll go through, do the same process. And now you see I have Google. Now, when we do the sign in, again, it's kind of what I was talking about, where it's kind of a hybrid of sign up and sign in at the same time. You can see this value I had to type in before for local, but because it can actually pull that from Google, it automatically populated it. So you need to make sure your like claims and are in alignment there, so that it knew how to pull that in here. For some reason, I don't get the email though. No problem. And again, I'm using the same email account here, so I'm actually going to just call this. Well, it's okay. We can see that. Let's do the verification code here for Google. Easy enough, nice and fast. Now we've been verified, and then I'll just put in my zip code one more time, and then continue. At this case, then it will redirect. I have my access token again. I'll go ahead and capture that. One thing you'll see down here is we do now get a claim for the IDP that we're using. We can actually see that our user is coming from Google, and you can see the name was the property that it was able to pull in and pre-populate. So let me now switch to, I want to go back to Postman. So I'm in this mode where I think I know all my steps I want to do in my demo, so I'm not looking at the my little cheat sheet here. So what I've done is just paste it in, and I know it looks almost exactly the same. So I can clear it out if you guys want me to approve it, but I'll go ahead and send this now, and you can see now I can call my API using either the local account or the Google account, and both of it, and that JWT validation allows for both of those. All right. Any questions on that? I think that was the last thing. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show on that was, now if we go here to back to BC and look at our users, you'll see 3 of me. Yeah, you'll see the one that was created with the account here when as the kind of the owner that created the tenant in the first place, and then you see this Azure AD, which is that local account, and then you see the Google source with the same name. So you can see that's how you can kind of manage those users. All right.
Hey, Mike, there are a couple of questions in the chat.
Yeah. Do you want to read them, or you want me to flip over to it?
I can read it. So Kiran is asking, what is the best practice on the standard sign up and sign in flows? Each application will have their own flows, or have the standard ones for all applications?
I mean, I think it really varies, right? It's gonna, I give the standard, it depends, but I think it really does depend on what you're doing. If you're doing the same thing for all your applications, this doesn't go against best practices to just reuse those, because there's a lot of work that can go into customizing those, both from the branding side of it and then also from the user flow itself. We've done some, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we've done some, the standard is pretty straightforward, but we've done some where we have to go call during the sign up process, we'll have to go call an API to, let's say, go get a loyalty ID or some sort of customer ID that means something in our customer database, and actually add that as an attribute to this user. And so we can go do that. We can also call APIs to go validate that, this is a good user. We can call third-party services like Twilio for verification if we want to. So there's a lot of different things you can do and set that up. And if your applications are really using that same thing, there's no reason not to. But what's nice is it has the flexibility for if application 1 needs a different kind of flow than application 2, you can do that also.
All right, I think the second question is also on the same lines around best practices to deploy these flows from one environment to another. Is it through CI/CD, and also do you know if there are any built-in Azure DevOps tasks available to deploy these flows?
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a huge proponent of anything we can do through DevOps. We do there, and we've done that. We've had several clients. So I'll show you. We'll touch on that at the end here with the custom identity framework, or the it's not custom. I can't think of the first. It's the C, the identity experience framework. Sorry. It's basically a set of XML files, and yes, you can use the API. So we basically just use PowerShell because there's not a built-in task for it, but you can essentially take those and use there's an API to upload those. So you can, check those into source control and then have those as part of your DevOps process. And I highly recommend that too, because you definitely want that consistency across, especially as you get more involved in those. And I'm going to show a little bit of, there's a whole GitHub repo of almost about everything you can think of that you might need to do with your sign up and sign in process, which is great that they have all those examples. So yeah, great questions. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, so here now I want to jump into, that was really just more talking about configuration. We did a little bit around the application side, but we'll kind of zoom in a little bit more here with that. The main thing I'd recommend using now is the Microsoft Access or Authentication Library, or MSAL. If you're using ADL, so the Active Directory Authentication Library, that one has been pretty much shelved at this point. All the effort now is on this new library, and it supports all the modern authentications there. The other thing is, it supports all the different platforms. We can go through here in this link. Probably come back if we have time. I want to make sure we get through everything. But here you have the different libraries you can use, and all that for the different platforms. So a lot of different things you can do from the library's perspective. The other piece is I want to talk about is the authorization code grant with PKCE. So I'd say probably 90% of the applications we build now are SPA applications with Angular and React. And identity, especially with OpenID Connect, has always been a little bit of a challenge, because before really all we had was implicit flow, which didn't work the best. Essentially, you get the identity token and access token all back at the same time, and then you'd kind of have to re-authenticate to get a new token. There was no refresh token or anything like that. There were some kind of clever ways, but it really, to me, didn't provide, I think, a super secure way to do it. So because of some of the features now that the browsers have built into them, we can actually do this authorization code grant. And what this does, this actually splits up the authorization with the token call. So we can actually pass in a unique identifier, and this does it all behind the scenes, a unique identifier from the browser here to do the authorization. So when we actually go and try to do request a new token from the refresh token, it knows that we are still the same browser, I guess, that requested the first one. So it actually makes it more secure versus before with the implicit flow. Somebody could just grab the access token and just run with it until it expired and such there. So this is the flow there, and by having these two endpoints, it definitely makes it a lot more secure. So let me jump in and kind of show what that looks like here. So let's see. The first thing we want to do is we'll go ahead and register. We want to go ahead and register our API. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an API, and then we're going to have our spot application talk to it. So the first thing we want to do is register a new application. In this case, we're just using some standard applications that are out there. For an example here, in this case, it's this JavaScript Node.js application. We're going to only be talking to the application with this, so we don't need to actually, users won't authenticate directly to the API, so we can specify this option instead of the first one. And that's pretty much all we need for this perspective, or from the API. We'll need the app ID later. So I'm going to copy that down. And then what we want to do is we want to expose this as an API. So we can actually come in here. And what this is nice about this is this provides a way to, when we're a way to basically, when you are getting your application token, it will actually have permission then to go get or to talk to this API. So here we're just going to set our app ID URI here. We're going to create a new scope. In this case, we're just going to do demo.read, and then we can paste in and try to minimize the typing for you guys. Here, just putting in some context around this, and then so this is our scope. The scope is really a way to pass in what the user has access to do from a claims perspective. So now we have our scope here, and so we'll need to actually use, we'll need this here too. I think that is also what we want to do. So that gives us our scope. The last thing we want to do is come in here and update the manifest. So this is a way to kind of get under the hood and change some additional things here. The one thing we do want to change is this access token accepted version. If it's null or 1, that's basically the 1.0 endpoint. We're actually using the 2.0. I mean, PKCE uses the 2.0, so I'm not really sure why it defaults to 1 anyway. So, but that way we can specify 2. And then what we want to do is actually go modify our application now. So we will switch over to, so I forgot to load my applications. I booted right before this. Hoping to remember to open everything, but we'll just come in here to repos, GitHub, Azure. Oops. And then in this case, we want to go into our web API. All right, so there's a couple of settings that we need to now set in here. In this case, they all are in our config.json file. You can see the first thing is our tenant name we'll need to change. So let's go grab that. Our client ID of our API. So I did grab that. Minimize a little bit of jumping around in the applications. So now there's our client ID there. Our policy name, I believe that's what we named it, but let's just go and double check. User flows. Looks like it's the same, but you just never know. There's our scope that we're expecting here, and then everything else is good. So in that case, we are good. I've actually deployed this out to Azure, just a Linux web app, and it's just a node application here. So let's come down, or rebooted. So hope this still set up. So we'll go ahead and deploy the web app while we're waiting, and that should be our only change. And so while that's deploying, then we'll come back now and register our client application. And our client application is we're just going to run that local here. So let's go back to B2C, do our app registration. Very descriptive name here. We do want our external our external entities to be named here. And our application is local, so we will run this from our local host and register the application. I'll save off our app ID. We'll probably come back and paste that anyway. So now we want to actually give it permission to that API. So this is actually pretty cool how we can configure this. We'll go ahead and add a permission. And here I can go to my APIs. And because we set that one up already, it's actually registered out there for us to set up. There's my account. I can now also grant it to the demo read. I might have like a demo write. Maybe this app, I don't want to necessarily give it access to do both the read and the write, let's say. But I can go specify that. You'll see here now it was set, but it's not granted for everybody. So essentially you get that like, hey, do you trust this API? And since we're like the same app, it's one thing if we're like, trusting our application with Google or something like that. But since it's the same app, we can just do a grant admin consent, and essentially now everybody will have, or it'll be granted to everybody in the directory for that. So let's see. So I think that is everything we need to do on here. So let me open up our client application. CD. I believe that's the right one there yeah. On that, we'll just do this one locally, but same type of thing. This one, we actually have several places that we need to go modify. First one here, we'll just go into policies. Our policy is the same here. We do have the ability. So this is, again, where I've mentioned, this is where you could change that policy for the different users if you'd want to. Here now is our, well, since it's the same, I think we're okay there, but let's go now and get our tenant name. Here. Oops. Didn't grab too much, but that's okay. We don't have any of those other flows defined. It'll just fail if we try to do those. Next thing we can do is actually come in here. So our web API, like I said, I already deployed that. That URL didn't change. However, the B2C scope did, because we just set that. So let's go in and grab that. We'll go to our app registrations. We'll go to our actual API. It's like Azure's taking a little bit of a nap here. There we go. our API. And then authentication, no, not authentication, API permission. No, sorry, expose an API. I'd get it right eventually. There, make sure that's copied. So now I can come in here to the scope, add that in. You can see that all should look good there. Save. And then the last one here is the auth config. So we need our client ID from our application. So this is the right one I captured. You see local storage. Okay, so I think that is everything. So we just have those three things. So now we can switch back to here. We can do an npm start. Let's go make sure our API is successfully deployed. That's completed. Great. I expect to see some output there, but I guess that's okay. So yeah, let's go to here. Let's pop open a incognito window. And then here's our awesome application. We'll go ahead and sign in. We did this right. We should see a sign in. There we go. I don't know why it's off, but we'll just maximize it. So here is our sign in that we can do. This is still the same accounts that we had before, so I can put in my email address. I remembered that right. We can sign in. Or we'll sign in with our Google account. All right, so now we're actually access. And so the last piece we need to do is we'll call our API and see if we can actually, it's kind of an echo type API. We'll see if it actually returns back our claim like we do. Both developer tools, unauthorized. Let's see, so this is here our token that we're trying, and this done this multiple times and it seems to fail pretty much every time here, but it seems to be more the application. So let's see, here is our web API. Let me just make sure. Last time I had just something wrong in here, so let me just double check. I apologize, I'm jumping screens. So here's our web API. Let's look at our overview for that application. It's an A8. I believe that's what we had in there. A8, yeah, that looks like the right. So sign in. And then that looked like let's try, we got two things we can try pretty easily. We can jump back over to here. We can actually come out to our app service. We'll go ahead and restart it just to make sure that it took effect there. And then while it's after it's done, we'll come and look at the log stream. So this will give us a view into actual logs that it's writing the application. Oh. All right, so let's kind of try calling one more time. Just kind of warming up. Can switch back to here. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's actually registered anything new. And we still got a full.
Mike, you are running it locally, not on the Azure app.
Well, the API I'm calling remote, but the application this here is running.
It's local, yeah.
Yeah, so what is going on here? So yeah, so it's origins. Let's try. Let's just try deploying one more time, and if that doesn't work, we will. Here, so we're deploying one more time. It should just take about 90 seconds. Yeah, it's interesting that. Oh, here we go. We'll deploy. Should be about done there. All right, we'll give it one more minute. Oh, it's like, oh, it worked. No, it's the options. All right, so that did deploy. And it looks like doesn't match. That is a different error than I've seen. Well, that was super disappointing. I've worked in about 3 times. I guess 4th time's not a charm. So really this would do is echo, and it should even show here the when it gets called, it will show the different or the different claims. So I just tried to start, but yeah, it looks like it's not going to work. So they would basically echo back my name to show that it was able to get it and call back. So the show must go on. So you can see here. So here's basically the log would show all the validated claims, and then the what would actually get returned back is just a simple JSON name with the actual display name of my user. The key piece, though, we'll just have to kind of punt on that piece. Sorry.
Could it be because you're passing on Microsoft.com there in the code?
I mean, that's what it did before. There just must be something. It's one of those things. I'll probably get it to work like 2 minutes after everybody hangs up. So, but the main thing I just wanted to show here was that, like that first example, what we did in use the implicit flow, but with this application, this SPA application from an authentication standpoint, we're using the PKCE, not the implicit flow to get the token back. So even though it didn't quite work, that's really what it's showing how to access there. And so it's not using the implicit flow anymore. It's using the good one. All right, so we'll just kind of wrap up with, I know we've got about 10 more minutes left, but I want to leave some time for some questions there. The last couple of things I wanted to talk about was some more advanced features. One of the key things here is access to what's called the Graph API. And the Graph API is really how we can, it's an API for getting access to the identities and users. So we've actually had, we've had some examples of where with our user journey, we didn't want to have users to be able to sign up. So what we did is we actually had in our application, we were calling the Graph API, is we had like a user administration screen. And so what we could do is create a new user there, and it would call the Graph API and basically simulate the sign up process and create that user account in the local database. And then we would send out an email inviting them to the Azure B2C, and that's all totally supported. Again, with this identity experience framework, let me pull this up. This is basically all the different journeys that you can do, and you can see there's a lot of different ones. Password reset via email or phone verification. I'm just going to jump around and force password reset on first login. You know, very common type of thing. Force password after 90 days. All these things can be done. If we just go into any of these, like Google CAPTCHA, we can come in. A lot of these are just kind of the deltas, but you can see it's just a series of XML files that can walk you through the journey here. So they'll right down here, the user journey, they'll kind of walk through the steps to do the different things. And here's where it can call APIs. It can do all those things. So it's really nice. You have these custom API capabilities or custom user journeys here that you can show. So again, this website's really nice. It has almost about every option you can think of, and then you can you know, obviously mix and match them together or find something that kind of works for different things. The last thing I wanted to show here was this ID protection and conditional access. So a lot of what we talked about was like the happy path, but what's nice is you can use different attributes of what they call signals to show like maybe where the user signed in, what application they're coming from. And what it'll do is actually identify a risk and prevent or basically create alerts. And then what you can actually do is create policies to do certain things. So, and you probably have seen this, like when you've signed in from a computer, maybe you haven't signed in before, it'll ask you to like run the authenticator, run your MFA. You can do the same type of thing here. You can't use authenticator, but you can require MFA. You know, let's say it's a brand new machine, and so you can create that access there. So you're maybe not signing in with MFA every time, or maybe you've got some users signing in from a location. They just signed in from Omaha, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, they're signing in from New York. That might be a red flag, or maybe even some another part of the world even. So you can create some conditional access for that to help control your applications. So a lot of this conditional access is part of that P2 license, which again, if you're under 50,000 users, it's still free. If you're more than that, I think the monthly average user cost is I think double, but it's still just a fraction of a penny there. So it'd still be quite worth it with it. So we've got about 9 minutes left. We can keep hacking and fix the issue, or we can kind of wrap up with any questions. I guess any questions? Any of you guys have been using B2C or Okta or any of the tools and Identity Server and try to do something or wonder how something's done?
Yeah, people can unmute themselves now if they want to talk. I've used Azure AD B2C in the past, and I think it has matured a lot.
Yeah, it really has. You can go back through the login last year, about every month they were releasing a lot of good new features with that. So it has really come a long ways since we first started using it like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anyone in the meeting, if you have any questions for Mike, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, if you questions after, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I didn't really put my email address in there, but I can put that in the chat. Always happy to talk shop or geek out.
Brian, do you have something?
I was just going to ask if there were a lot of changes that happened. Are there breaking changes, or how often do you have to maintain an application?
So Microsoft's done a really good job, especially with that identity experience framework. So they have what's called the base XMLs, and so they can change the base XMLs. You never want to actually change those. You really just want to change what essentially they're like kind of cascade files. So like you can change the ones that you control, but don't change the one Microsoft says, because or otherwise they could break you. I can't think of any breaking changes that have occurred over the last couple of years. So they've really just been adding more features to it instead of really getting away from changing anything. I can't think of any breaking changes they've had over the last couple of years. I mean, they switched from, I think I can't remember what it was called now. It was just called like custom policies, I think, and then they changed it to the identity experience framework. When they did that, there was breaking changes, but that to me, I think that's the only thing I can remember. Yeah, anybody else? All right. Well, thanks everybody. Feel free to reach out if you do have any questions. Probably get this working right after hang up, and that's all right. You guys saw most of what I could do.
That's all right, Mike. Thank you so much on behalf of the user group. I would like to thank you for taking time out and presenting on B2C. I think it's a great topic.